like to say I was the richest 12-year-old I knew because I'd play on Sunday afternoons after church, and I would make $8 to $10.
There's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing.
We loved the Buffalo Springfield in our band, and we got a chance to open for them. But the only problem was our best songs were all Buffalo Springfield songs. And so we played all their songs before they came out.
It happens all the time, this crazy love of mine.
I have a review cut out at home that says, when we toured with Yes, where the reviewer said, Poco, yes, yes, no. Well, so he had everyone around him with this enormous success. At the same time, we were percolating down here, and I think he just gave up.
Will you tell me there's no regret?
And then he goes and he looks at me and George, and he says, okay, you guys don't write and you don't sing, do you? And we said, no. And he said, you guys are in trouble.
Keep on trying, I'm through with.
And somehow he got connected to Roy Rogers. And then I thought, Rosa Cimarron, that sounds like a Sons of the Pioneers song.
Rosa Cimarron.
It was pretty clear after some time that it was not going to be a reunion that went on.
Tell me why you call it love.
The thing about Poco is we've always had great musicians. That's why we lasted 46 years.
All fired up. Me and the boys, we're gonna make a little noise. Turn up the heat, get up on your feet and get all fired up. All fired up. Kick up your heels. Don't you love how it feels? Let's do it all again like we did back when we were all fired up. We're all fired up. Turn up the music, grab the mandolin, and get ready, these boys are digging in. A thumping bass and a kicking kick. Come on and let it rip, because we're all fired up. Yeah! All fired up. What do you say when you feel this way? Do a little dance, take a little chance, get all fired up. All right, we're fired up. I got a feeling tonight's the night. I don't know why, but it just feels right. Maybe it's me and maybe it's you. What are you gonna do? When you're all fired up. Yeah, Michael. All fired up. Kick up your heels. Don't you love how it feels? Let's do it all again like we did back when we were all fired up. Do a little dance, take a little chance, and get all fired up. Get all fired up. We're all fired up. Woo! Here we go. We're all fired up.
I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and my parents were both big country music fans. And every Saturday night they went down to the Anchor, which was the local bar. It had a little live country band that played. And they took me from the time I was just able to sit on the bar And they would take me with them, and they'd meet their friends, and they'd dance and listen to country music. Huge fans. In 1952, I was 6 years old. They started me on steel guitar lessons. There weren't a lot of steel guitar players back in the 50s, so at an early age, I got the chance to play in the country bars around Denver and play country music on my steel guitar. And so that was my introduction into making money playing steel guitar. I like to say I was the richest 12-year-old I knew, because I'd play on Sunday afternoons after church at these local bars, and we'd have a tip jar, and I would make $8 to $10. And that was more money than any other 12-year-old I know had. And so I was fortunate because pedal steel was so new that no one knew it. Everyone was learning it. There was no great guide to the thing. Everyone had to learn together because it was such a new thing. And they were inventing different ways of, the pedals would work and what strings they would raise and lower and that. So the whole time everyone was learning pedal steel. I was a young kid, but I was learning right along with them. And there were no teachers like in Denver. There was no one who would teach you pedal steel, because there was like 2 guys in the whole state that played pedal steel guitar. So it was kind of a really good timing thing, because I could learn as everyone was learning. And back then you learned from LPs. I played assemblies when I was in junior high, and I'd get up and I'd play Sano and Johnny's Sleepwalk, da 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 da. So people knew I played, but since I played that stuff, they didn't associate it with country music, which was not real popular with high school kids in the 50s,
There's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing. So let's begin. Bringing you back down home where the folks are happy. Sitting, thinking and grinning casually. You and me will pick up the pieces. Somebody yelled out at me. Country music and company kind of makes it on a Sunday afternoon. Well, picnic lunches of yesterday still have a place in your heart today. Think it over, 'cause we'll all be going home real soon. There's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing. So let's begin. Bringing you back down home where the folks are happy. Sitting, picking and grinning casually. You and me will pick up the pieces. There's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing. So let's begin. Bringing you back down home where the folks are happy. Sitting, picking and grinning casually. You and me will pick up the pieces.
Thank you, Richie Furay. All right.
My teen years were a little unusual because I played 7 nights a week as a teenager in high school. And I would do, on Sundays, they had these late night clubs that would go from when the bars closed until 5 in the morning. And I would do those too. So I was playing 7 nights and doubles on Sunday. Going to high school, and 6 days a week I was giving guitar lessons and selling guitars at Don Edwards. So I didn't have a big social life, and high school was kind of really an afterthought even. When the Beatles hit, everyone wanted to play rock and roll, including me. Everyone wanted to be a Beatle. in 64 and 65. So I made the jump from playing country music to that. And of course, all my country friends say, you're making a huge mistake, you know. You could go on the road with like Ray Price, you know. Why would you want to play rock and roll? But, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And it turned out to be the right move. The way I actually got into that first rock and roll band was George Grantham was their drummer. And George later became the drummer in Poco. George Grantham was the drummer in that band, and he came to Don Edwards, and we used to have these jam sessions when there was nobody there, and I had a steel set up in the back, and I think I was doing a Hendrix song on steel with the fuzz tone. So I'm doing the and putting my, you know, doing all this kind of stuff. George came in and saw me, and then he went back and he told the guys in the band, you know, there's this guy that plays, you know, really wild guitar. And then he came back another time and he said, well, listen, you know, I heard you play, and would you be interested in coming by and seeing how you fit in with our rock and roll band? And he said the name, and I knew the name because they were a popular local band. And so that's how I got into that rock and roll band. And back then was because George heard me play at the guitar store.
Some days I feel like time's played a joke on me. When I look in the mirror, I thought I'd flame out, laid in the ground at 33. I wouldn't bet a dime I'd be here, no. But this train's heading west around the bend. We're all riding this train. Never gonna turn back to where it's been. Never be here again. Hear that rhythm roll, watch it all unfold. Big old beautiful world. Take the time to sit back and let it spin, and drink it in. Don't need a Bordeaux, pull the cork and pour me some, straight from a jug of blue sky. Life used to be a big blur, but it's all 2020 now. Looking down the line with new eyes. And this train's heading west around the bend. We're all riding this train. Never gonna turn back to where it's been. Never be here again. Hear that rhythm roll, watch it all unfold. Big old beautiful world. Take the time to sit back and let it spin, and drink it in. Yeah, drink it in. This train's heading west around the bend. We're all riding this train. Never gonna turn back to where it's been. Never be here again. Hear that rhythm roll, watch it all unfold. Big old beautiful world. Take the time to sit back and let it spin, and drink it in. Yeah, drink it in. We're all riding this train. Drink it in. Yeah.
Jack Sundred.
I'd had this friend since we were, you know, 10 years old, Miles Thomas. Miles couldn't play music. I tried to give him lessons and teach him, but he just didn't have what it takes for music, but he loved music. So he ended up being a roadie for this band called the Soul Survivors. They went on to be in the Stone Canyon band, Ricky Nelson's band. And in that band was Randy Meisner. So they packed up and moved to L.A. to make it in L.A. And they ended up with the same management as Buffalo Springfield, and they played at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and Miles was their roadie. And the Soul Survivors ended up breaking up, and Springfield hired Miles to be their roadie. And so Miles was on the road with them, and when he came to Denver, I'd go down and see him, and it was great. We loved the Buffalo Springfield in our band, and we got a chance to open for him. Our favorite band, we were so excited. But the only problem was our best songs were all Buffalo Springfield songs. So we played all their songs before they came out. And of course, they came out and they started playing the same songs. And, the audience is totally, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so I figured there was no way I'd ever be, the Springfield would ever, if they saw me, they'd probably shoot me, So Miles is working for him. They're in the studio. Richie says, I'd really like to have steel guitar on Kind Woman, this song. And my buddy Miles says, hey, I know the best steel player around. We can get him out here. And so Richie said, sure, call him up. And so Miles called me up and he says, you're not going to believe this, and how soon can you get here? And I said, well, what time is it? I'll be there in 20 minutes if I can. It's one of our favorite Timothy B songs.
She told me you're so full of doubt, you just can't let it be. But I know if you keep on coming back for more, then I'll keep on trying. I'll keep on trying. Well, I've been drinking now just a little too much, and I don't know how can get in touch with you. Now there's only one thing for me to do, is to keep on trying to get home to you. And I feel so satisfied when I can see you smile. I want to confide in all that is true, so I'll keep on trying. I'm through with lying, just like the sun above, I'll come shining through. Yes, I will, yes, I'll keep on trying. I'm tired of crying, I've got to find a way to get on home to you.
I flew my guitar out from Colorado. So when I opened it up at the studio to overdub on the song, my guitar was smashed. They smashed the pickups and all that, and it was unplayable. And I couldn't believe it. Here was my big chance to play on a Buffalo Springfield record, the last one, and my guitar's busted. And in 1966, 67, there weren't a lot of pedal steels around, even in LA. You couldn't get on the phone and say, hey, this music store is going to have a pedal steel you can play. And so, I talked to Jimmy and I said, I can't play this. It's busted. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I think in the closet back here, we have a show bud. So he went to the closet, and there was a pedal steel, a Showbud pedal steel, a brand new one. So here I was, I'm playing on the biggest session of my life, and I'm playing on a guitar that plays backwards for me. And so I just played stuff that I would never play in a million years on my own guitar. But it turned out to be really unique. And you can hear it in the chorus. It goes, kind woman, da-da-da-da. I pushed the wrong pedals on that. But it's funny how things work out, because that is such a unique steel part that to this day I have, famous or well-known great steel players say that particular performance inspired them to learn to play steel guitar. So there you go. And Richie asked me, he said, listen, when you go back, would you come back and let's start a band, let's get a band together. And so I went home, sold everything I had, and went out to LA.
So here we are, so near, so far, with no illusions what you always do, and write your own version of the truth. So tell me, what will you say when it all fades away, and what you wanted is what you get? Will you say it was fate and there was no escape? Will you tell me there's no regret? Sometimes it hurts to see you fall, and sometimes it doesn't hurt at all. She builds you up, then tears you down. And you go round and round and round and round. So tell me, what will you say when it all fades away, and what you wanted is what you get? Will you say it was fate and there was no escape? Will you tell me there's no regret? Time and time and time again, the song remembers when. Why did you and I let those days go by? So tell me, what will you say when it all fades away, and what you wanted is what you get? Will you say it was fate and there was no escape? Will you tell me there's no regret? No regret.
It was a place where all the record A&R people would come down to find new acts, and we were pretty much the house band there. And it was a great thing for us because we'd rehearse in the afternoons and then play at night. And we didn't have any money at all, so we needed a place to rehearse. So that helped us get through those early stages of getting the band together. It was exciting. I mean, you look down and, George Harrison to be there because they wanted to sign us to Apple. And every night there'd be, people there that would just, blow me away. But the band was different. And it was so exciting. Richie's an exciting entertainer. He would bounce all over the stage. And I was doing my thing with steel guitar. I was turning it on its side and playing with the chair and all that kind of stuff. And Jimmy was such a, really great musician, really controlled. And Randy Meisner, he has such a cool, amazing voice. Take it to the limit. Need I say more? And you put that voice with Richie's voice, and what all was going on, Richie had some really unusual material. It wasn't really like top 40 stuff. It was real artsy, I think. Just before the first record even came out, there were issues between some of the people in the band, and Randy left and Jimmy left. And that takes your momentum away. I think if the first 5 would have stayed together, it would have been a different history than it turned out. There was so much talent there, and the talent that left went on to do even better than Poco. I think that proves out what that band could have been if we could have kept the 5 together. The real hard part for me was that this time is set aside to record, and it's set in stone to tour. So that record has to be delivered on that date, because if you don't, the release schedule is screwed, and so is the touring. You got these dates booked. You got to be out there playing. You can't be, you can't blow that off. So you're kind of in this straitjacket kind of deal. And for Richie, too, in the beginning we had this backlog of songs that he'd written when he was in the Buffalo Springfield. And there are even demos of those songs with the Springfield doing them that we recorded. But once you get to album 2 and 3 and you've been doing the schedule that you were just suggesting, it was hard for Richie to come up with enough songs. 10 songs was basically the deal. We were lucky, though, because when Jimmy left, we got Paul Cotton, and he brought with him 3 songs for every album. And so if Tim could come up with 1, and Paul came up with 3, that left only 6 songs, to fill out the spot. And maybe if one was pretty long, it'd be 5 songs. And they would write on the road, while we were out there, they'd sit in the hotel room and write songs. And we'd try them out on stage at sound checks.
In the heart of the night, in the cool falling rain, there's a full moon in sight, shining down on the Pontchartrain, and the river she rises, just like she used to do. She's so full of surprises, she reminds me of you. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, oh, way down in New Orleans. There's a night bird singing right on through till the dawn, and the streets are still ringing with people carrying on. It's been so long waiting just to be here again, anticipating all the time I could spend in the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, yeah, yeah. Trust in your love, never falling down. Oh, I trust in your love, just like I do in this town.
You know, we were on bills, you know, playing big concerts, you know, in baseball stadiums and arenas and stuff like that. And that song went down so big with the audience. It was just, and we would open with it. It was a brand new song no one had heard, and we'd open the show with Good Feeling to Know. And backstage, radio guys would come back and they'd say, man, that first song you played, that's your first hit. You finally got a hit. I can play that on the radio. And, you know, we'd hear that all across the country as we did that tour. And so we got back, and our expectations were really, really high. And we released it as a single before the album came out, and it didn't make the top 100. At the time, AM radio was what ruled, you know, and which is amazing to think about these days. But if you didn't have that 2.5-minute song on AM radio, nothing's going to happen. You aren't going to make it on the charts, period. And FM radio loved it, played it to death. But FM radio didn't chart. AM radio was the charts. And so I guess that's why. You know, I mean, it's a classic Poco song, and it's a rallying song at every Poco concert we do. But it just wasn't what AM radio wanted to hear. And it broke Richie's heart. And that was, so after that, he just, you know, I think he just gave up. I know he did. He just gave up. And when David Geffen came to him and said, why don't we make this new super group? It'll be like Crosby, Stills, and Nash all over again with you and J.D. Souther and Chris Hillman. I think, you know, it was just the right time for Richie to go that direction. Now, if Good Feeling to Know would have been, you know, even a moderate hit, I think it might have been different because we were all really close. We were a close family. I think it was harder for Richie because he saw Randy be hugely successful and Jimmy go on to be successful. He saw Steven and Neil go on to be hugely successful. So he had everyone around him with this enormous success, and at the same time we were percolating down here. And I think just for him and his personality, that was a lot harder on him than it certainly was on me. That was the obvious move for Richie to make, and I don't blame him at all for that.
There goes Bobby Ray Jr. He's pulling out of town. He's got his family in a U-Haul, and they're all sunbelt bound. Another farm abandoned, they gave the land back to the wind. The price of fuel went up, corn went down, and I don't think we'll be seeing Bobby again. It's a hard country. Last year the fields were all too wet to plow. Hard country. And this year they say that it looks like a drought, but I can't leave. My roots go deep in this hard country. Now I've got a friend, got a job in the city, installing burglar alarms. He says he's making real good money, but I can tell he misses the farm. He calls to ask how the crops are doing. I say we could use some rain. He says his life is moving kind of fast, and I tell him out here things are always the same. It's a hard country. Last year the fields were all too wet to plow. Hard country. And this year they say that it looks like a drought, but I can't leave. My roots go deep in this hard country. Now the snow piles up in the winter and the bugs come out in June. But somehow it's all worth it when I see that harvest moon.
All right, thanks, guys. Very cool. Isn't that cool?
I'd heard rumors, that Richie was going to be doing something else. This was right after Good Feeling. That was kind of in the air as we're going to have this big important meeting, with management. And I'll never forget, we walk in the door and Geffen says, "Richie, come on in." And Richie goes into his office and he closes the door, and like 5 minutes later the door opens and Geffen comes out and he says, "Richie's quitting the band." And, which was kind of a surprise because Richie had assured us that wasn't going to be the case. We're sitting on the couch and Geffen goes to Tim and he looks at Tim and he says, "Okay, you write songs, you sing, you write songs, don't worry, you're going to be okay. Richie's leaving, but no problem for you. You'll be fine." He looks at Paul. He says, "Paul, now you sing and you write songs, don't you?" And Paul said, "Well, yeah, I do." And he said, "Hey, this is no big deal. You will be fine." He looks at me and he looks at George and he says, "Okay, you don't sing and you don't write. You guys, right?" "No." And he said, "You guys are in trouble." Now, at the time, I was the #1 steel player, on the planet. I was on the cover of Guitar Player magazine. I'd been voted best steel player in the world 5 years in a row. There was pretty much, I was pretty much as on the top of the heap. Whether I was that good or not remains to be seen. But I was looked at as being the guy. As successful as you could get on steel guitar. That was me. I realized that day in the music business, the only important people are the guys who write songs and sing. That day I said to myself, "You know what, Rusty? You need to learn how to write songs and sing." And so that was a major turning point in my life. And the neat part about it is that then in 1978, about 4 years later, the first Poco song to ever go to #1, to ever be a hit, the first Poco album to go gold and platinum, the first song we ever had to be #1 song of the year in Billboard magazine was a song that I wrote and sang. So David Geffen, although it was hard to see it at the time, did me the biggest favor anyone could ever have done for me. And Richie leaving the band was the biggest thing that favor he could have ever done for me, because if he'd have stayed, I would have stayed playing steel guitar. I would never have sung. I would never have written. I would have been happy being that person in our band, the person that does that, puts the pasture down, the color for the songs. And I, you know, my life would be totally different.
Always thinking.
Tonight I'm gonna break away. Just you wait and see. I'll never be imprisoned by a faded memory. Just when I think I'm over her, and this broken heart will mend, I hear her name and I have to cry. The tears come down again. It happens all the time. This crazy love of mine, it wraps around my heart, refusing to unwind. Ooh, crazy love. Count the stars in a summer sky that fall without a sound, and then pretend that you can't hear these teardrops coming down. It happens all the time. This crazy love of mine, it wraps around my heart, refusing to unwind. Ooh, crazy love. It happens all the time. This crazy love of mine, it wraps around my heart, refusing to unwind. Crazy love. Tonight I'm gonna break away.
Yes, my people.
It's Wesley Young.
For me, it was great, because I've always been frustrated with the fact that first band didn't make a record. The band with Randy really didn't make a record. They took Randy off, all his parts off, and replaced them with Jimmy playing bass. And except for a few vocal harmonies in the back, they replaced Randy. On that one record, which is the band from 1968, you have Randy Meisner. So you have, on that record, you have the Eagles, you have Jimmy Messina, you have Long as a Messina, you have Richie Furay, you have Buffalo Springfield. And by that time I'd had, you know, I was the Poco guy, because I'd had the big hit. So you have Poco, Buffalo Springfield, Long as a Messina, Eagles. It went gold. And, you know, we did all the Tonight shows and that kind of stuff, and, you know, it reached that level. It still didn't get the cred that I think it should have, because I think critics and reviewers missed it. That is a frustration for me, that one. The truth of the matter, and I think we all learn this in life, is that people don't really change. And so it was pretty clear before, you know, after some time, that it was not going to be a reunion that went on, that it was a one-time thing, and it was a great one-time thing and something that I'll cherish forever. But it was pretty clear that it had a lifetime, and that was it. And it was a great experience.
We've got all night, let's take our time. Tell me your secrets, and I'll tell you mine. When it makes us feel better, if If it makes you feel better, when it makes us feel better, we'll call it love. We've got all night, let's take our time. Tell me your secrets, I'll tell you mine. And when it makes you feel better, just call it love. You say you won't, and I say you will. You make me crazy, but I want you still. And if it makes you feel better, just call it love. Do we tell our truth? Do we live our life? Is the feeling good? Is that what makes you cry? When you say those words, look me in the eye. Tell me why you call it love. I play my hand and you call me bluff. We push each other till we've had enough. When it's all you've got, just call it love. If I didn't have money, would you want me still? When you look real close, do we fit the bill? Call it what you want, and only time will tell. Do we tell our truth? Do we live our life? Is the feeling good? Is that what makes you cry? When you say those words, look me in the eye. Tell me why you call it love. We've got all night, let's take our time. Tell me your secrets, I'll tell you mine. And when it makes us feel better, we'll call it love. Call it love. When it's all you've got, just call it love.
All right, this time it's Mr. Michael. That'll work. That's close.
We were touring, and I think we were in Oklahoma, and you know how they have these wooden things with brochures in them, you know, all the brochures of the local sites, and I think it was at the hotel, waiting to check in, there was one sticking up, and the top of it said Rose of Cimarron, and I thought, wow, those words are just, that's so musical, that's so beautiful. And so I picked it up and read, and it was about this woman in the 1800s who, it's like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. She used to, the outlaws would go to her house when they were hiding out or they needed food or they were shot up or something, and she would take care of them. And she was there in the Cimarron Panhandle, and they called her Rose of Cimarron, and I thought, man, that's such a great title. I have a friend, Stuart Margolin. And somehow he got connected to Roy Rogers, and Roy was going to cut a new album. And so it was just, I thought, oh, this is too cool. And then I thought, Rosa Cimarron, that sounds like a Sons of the Pioneers song. And I took it, they said, come on down to the studio and show us your song. Back then we didn't cut demos so much. And so I took my guitar and I went down there and sat in the control room like this, and Roy Rogers was there. And Roy had the fringe shirt and the pants with the conchos down the side and the big boots and the pants tucked in. And it looked just like Roy Rogers, You expect Trigger to be in the parking lot, And I played it for him, and they loved it and all that. But then something came up, and Roy decided he wasn't going to make an album. And I played Rose for the boys in the band, and they all said, let's do this. And it was the title tune to that album. And I like the idea, Richie taught me the idea, Springfield taught me the idea of using two singers, one to sing one verse and one to sing another. And that song was perfect for it because it's a story. To have one guy sing one verse and one guy sing another verse, and then they join on the chorus. And that song was just suited. We've done that with Poco. I like doing that. We've done that a few times. It's actually been the most recorded Poco song of our entire catalog.
Shadows touch the sand and look to see who's standing. Waiting at her window, she's watching. Will they ever show?
Can you hear them calling? You know they have fallen on. Campfires cold and dark that never seen a spark burn bright.
The thing about Poco is we've always had great musicians. That's why we lasted 46 years. I meet so many people that our music has affected their lives. And you know, that's awesome. I just think that getting to have that kind of impact on people is something so special. So I feel really, really blessed.